Welcome back to the channel. This is the Action Figure Grader, and today we're going to take a look at loose, complete, mainly action figures. I do have a couple of vehicles and a few 12-inch figures, one baggie, but most of these are 3 3/4-inch vintage Kenner items. Everything from first 12, last 17, and I got quite a few data points for the Droids line from 1985. 2 different Sise Fromms sold for extremely large amounts of money, and those continue to go up in price. As always, thanks to my Patreon supporters. Patreon.com/actionfiguregrader is where you can go to sign up. And as a reminder, you can email me if you have a collection to sell, actionfiguregrader@gmail.com, and I can put you in touch with trusted sellers, trusted buyers, and do it all away from eBay. You can avoid a lot of the eBay fees. He pays very fair prices. And whether it's loose, complete, like we're talking about today, mint on card, mint in sealed box, graded, ungraded. I've had a lot of subscribers take advantage of that service. It's free. I just try to connect you guys. And everyone's been very happy that I've talked to that has worked with the buyers that I know very well. All right, let's go ahead and take a closer look. We got a Princess Leia. This one was pretty clean. The torso maybe was a little slightly different color than the legs. I always feel like with Leia, it's the arms and the legs that are a different color than the torso. The torso is usually bright white, but it could just be a factor of the factory. This one appears to be the Taiwan, so maybe the Taiwan factory torso was always a slightly different color. I don't know, but this was a very nice example. I think it would grade very high. And it sold for $120.50, pretty good price there. That angle really shows you the slight difference in the torso color versus the legs. So I don't know how they factor in the different factories when they're grading these things. There's so many factories that made them: Hong Kong, China, Taiwan, Spain, Mexico. I mean, you name it. Palitoy factory in Europe, Meccano, French figures. It does seem like that AFA, UKG, and CAS, they do factor in the fact that the Spanish figures are very, very poorly painted, very weak welds, things like that. And an 80 from the Spanish factory, the Spanish PBP or POX, is not the same as an 80 from Hong Kong. That's been my experience. But certainly at UKG, I feel like my AFA graded Spanish POC Tusken Raider probably would not have gotten an 80 if it had been a Hong Kong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they don't factor in the factories, but that was certainly a nice figure. Here was a beautiful solid dome R2-D2 in very good condition. That one did sell in an auction for about $101. This is another one where I don't know how it would grade. If I had to pick a grade on it, I'd say an 80 plus. You could maybe argue that there's some slight defects to the sticker, especially on the back there, but we're nitpicking. I mean, this was a very, very nice figure. So if you happen to buy this one, be the person that bought this, and you do grade it, let me know what it grades for, because it was a very, very nice example of the solid dome R2-D2. And this one was a Hong Kong COO. You can see the slight color difference there between the feet and the cylinder. But again, I think this one is a pretty nice example, near mint plus condition, or at least near mint. A couple of 12-inch figures, or the 15-inch for the IG-88. Very big character here. And this was 100% complete with all the grenades for his bandolier. It sold in a buy it now for $650, which I would argue is probably about right. And you know, it's hard to judge the condition of these. Sometimes you can see scuffs. One of the big things you hear about is like weld marks on the bandolier. Like the brown portion of the bandolier can get scuffs and kind of weird meld marks on it. But this one did look pretty clean from what I could tell. Here was the 12-inch Boba Fett. That one sold in an auction for $305. It was 100% complete and looked to be in pretty nice shape to me. I mean, just taking a closer look at it. I don't know about that limp wrist thing he's got going here, but he was just posing it, I guess. But this one looked really nice. I mean, the paint on this one's very good. Usually you can see scuffs on the legs especially, and of course on the armor and helmet. But this one was a very nice, near mint-ish condition example for $305. Was a good price. Here was another Yoda that sold, brown snake Yoda with the black Pac-Man eyes. I don't think this was any kind of especially interesting variant. I mean, I think this is just a standard brown snake Yoda, but it was super clean. I mean, look how clean the hands and the feet are. Those are the first two things I always look at when I see a loose Yoda for sale. And I also do, I mean, I have to admit, when I look at Yodas, I always look at the color of the head versus the feet and the arms or the hands, because you got the gray head variant, which I don't think this one is, although there is maybe a slight color difference there. But the gray is like, the gray head Yoda is very noticeable, the Cater gray head Yoda. And then obviously the apple headed Yoda. Those are kind of the two big variants where you can really spot them. And you can also spot the Lily Lettys pretty easily too. I mean, they have a kind of a distinct paint scheme. But this is just looked like a standard brown snake Yoda, and $117.50 on that one, although it did look super, super clean. Here was a baggie. I think I had this in a what to buy video. This is the ESBH baggie for Snaggletooth, and this has the gray, the dark gray skin. There's kind of two different, I'm still getting over my cough. There's two distinct Spanish PvP figures for Snaggletooth. One with kind of the standard gray color to the skin, and then this one, which has a very dark skin color. You can kind of see that there. But this baggie was fully sealed and sold for 150 pounds, which is 192 US dollars. We had a Taiwan Luke Farm Boy, and you can see some obvious yellowing to the torso versus the arms and legs. And this is a seller I see sell all the time. I think Anderson Enterprises is his name, and isn't that the name of the shell company that Tomax and Zaymont ran for Cobra Commander? Maybe I'm misremembering that, but that just kind of came to me. I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool name. Anyway, so this figure was pretty nice. It just had some slight discoloration to the torso. $173.50 on that one. Very clean example, though. And then he also did have the orange cape squid head. And these continue to command very desirable, very big money from collectors that like to have these. Now, we've talked about this, but it's really just a degraded or discolored brown cape. But sometimes they discolor so uniformly like this that they're very desirable from or by collectors. And this is the case with this one. It's a very bright orange color. And this is about where they usually sell, $127.50. I see them sell as high as $175, but usually in an auction, $125 to $150 is about what they go for. But that's a pretty cool looking example. There's collectors that like to get every shade of the cape. I'm looking at you, Lee M. He's got like a really cool rainbow of different cape colors for Squid Head when he puts them all together. Next up was a No COO Luke Skywalker Jedi. And it looked to be in pretty awesome condition. I mean, that is about as mint as you get there. And that one sold for $173.50, as it probably should have. You know, an AFA 85 is what, about $250, $275-ish, somewhere in there. And this one maybe had one little tiny nick on his nose. That was really the only defect. Otherwise, it looked pretty much factory fresh. I mean, that was a gorgeous example. Sewn cape for the No COO Luke Skywalker. And Toy Scout had a bunch of different Last 17, digging into those now. He had a bunch at auction. First was Ramba, complete with the coin. The coin looked to be in really clean shape. $186. He had General Lando. Look how clean that Lando looks. I mean, that looks like it's fresh off a card. With the coin for $262. He had the Luke in his indoor combat poncho, which sold for $213.59. No coin on that, but that was another data point for those of you looking for Last 17. And then he also had the Luke Stormtrooper disguise, which obviously did have some discoloration, especially on the shoulders as it relates to the torso piece. But the hair was in really good shape there, complete with the correct weapon as well as the coin for $407. So it seems like Luke's starting to come back down to earth a little bit. There was a couple months ago, it was this year, where we started to see some absolutely stupid prices for Luke Stormtrooper, but it seems like the market has kind of come to its senses a little bit. That's another figure that has come back down to earth just a little bit. EV99 from a different seller sold for $350, which seems like a lot to me, although it did look super clean. I mean, it was very, very clean. And I wouldn't pay $350 for one, but that's just me. But you know, it is tough to find one where the limbs have not broken off, or you know, the joints have not broken. Next up was another Lando. This one sold for $270. No coin on that one, but just some light scuffs here and there to him, but very clean, probably about 80 grade. And a Monoman sold for $275. As of the making of this video, there's an AFA 85 right now that is at auction that's supposed to end in like 2 or 3 hours that I might go after. I haven't decided yet. I don't know the seller, so I'm a little sketched out by the photos, but it is an AFA 85 new case style. And I don't know what I'm going to bid, if I bid at all. But if I do bid, it's probably going to be in that like 375 range, somewhere in there. But this ungraded example that was admittedly pretty clean looking sold for $275. And then 2 different A-Wings sold. First was this one with the correct, I think, the correct weapon. It's hard to tell there. That one looks like, that weapon looks like it's kind of bluish there. Maybe I'm wrong, but I always thought it was a solid black A-Wing pilot blaster. That one looks, at least in the photo, like the bluish black one, but who knows. Assuming it's the correct weapon, that one sold for $195. And then here was another one where you can see there the weapon looks much darker. Maybe I'm wrong. It's in the light, so it's kind of hard to tell. But the big thing on A-Wing is always the hands and that silver chest piece. It seems like every single loose one that I see sell on eBay has paint rub on that silver portion of the chest piece. And this one had it, and this one also did have it. That one sold for $316.37, and that included the card back. All right, now let's dig into some Droids items to finish things off. We had a complete A-Wing. This one got listed and then sold and then got relisted again. So take this for what it's worth. But, you know, it had some obvious damage. The canopy was in really rough shape. Yellowing, maybe some yellowing on the white portion and then some bad scuffs on the front. So, or paint touch-up. Hard to tell. But this is like a really rough one. Okay, this is like a shelf example. And it sold for $502. So, you know, the stickers look to be complete. There's some scratches here and there, but this is a battle-worn A-Wing, okay? And I think that's kind of, I mean, I think you could pay a little bit more than that and probably get a cleaner one would be my recommendation. But this one did sell and then got relisted and then sold again. You can see some more wear at the bottom there. So that's just a rough example, but, you know, that's the cheapest price I could find. I'm really putting this together for Usual Mike. Usual Mike is all into the Droids, so I'm showing him some recent sales, kind of more affordable options here. And there's not many things that are affordable in the Droids line, but what is this called? The Interceptor, the ATL Interceptor, which is such a weird vehicle. This looks like a Japanese, you know, one of those anime 1980s anime Japanese cartoons like Robotech. It's what it looks like. It looks like Robotech. That one sold for $225. I found several other data points for one of these, and they were all between $200 and $225. So that's a pretty consistent sales price for the ATL Interceptor Loose Complete. And a few figures. This was a really nice looking C-3PO. $600 was the sales price. We've seen some AFA 85s go in that $750 to $850 range, somewhere in there. Maybe as high as $900, but this one looks like it would grade very high. And that did sell, one bid, $600. And then finally, we got Sise Fromm. He is a tricky one to find. He and Tig Fromm, but especially Sise Fromm. This one, now be careful on Sise Fromm, because there's a lot of customs out there right now. There's somebody making customs that looks awfully close to this. And usually they advertise it and said, hey, this is a custom. This is not the vintage example. But be careful, because I'm sure there's going to be some unscrupulous sellers on eBay that will try to pass it off. And I don't follow customs, so I don't know what to look for. I assume that hopefully there's something noticeable about the figure that would be a good tell. But just be careful when you're buying this figure, because there are a lot of customs out there that sell for about $50 or $100. This one was listed for $1249.99 complete with his robe, and it sold for $1075. I found another one without the robe, so naked Sise Fromm. As terrifying as that sounds, my wife knows all about what that looks like, but Sise Fromm naked without the robe still goes for $300. I found a data point for $300 for my lookalike Sise Fromm. And then finally was another Sise Fromm that included the very hard to find coin. That one was listed for $1275 and sold for $1,100. And this figure, you know, it looked to be pretty good. It's always hard to tell. I just don't follow these figures closely enough to be able to judge what kind of condition they're in, but you know, this one had some really nice close-ups to give you a good idea. He's got big, ugly boils on it. I mean, that is one ugly dude. You You can't sugarcoat it, man. That is one ugly dude, and it's like looking into a weird magic mirror and knowing what I'm going to look like in about 25 to 30 years. So anyway, so $10.75 on this one, and then with the coin, $1,100 was the final sales price. Thank you, as always, for watching. I really appreciate you guys watching. Please leave me a like if you enjoyed this video, and if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. I try to cover vintage Star Wars prices, TVC, things like that, and kind of anything else in between that strikes my fancy and hopefully you guys enjoy. Thank you again, and I'll be back soon.